Prince Deho stood on the highest balcony of his crystal palace, looking out at the endless void of space. Below him, his empire stretched across thousands of star systems. Each world flew the blue banner of the Valtirian Empire. Each planet paid tribute to his family. Each species bowed before Valtirian power. He was tall like all his people, with skin that shined like blue metal under the light of twin suns. His eyes glowed with the inner fire that marked him as royalty. The psychic energy that flowed through his body could crush minds and bend reality itself. He was 28 years old and had never known defeat. "My prince," came a voice behind him. General Minho approached with careful steps. The older Valtirian wore the black armor of the Imperial military. Scars crossed his face from battles fought in distant corners of the galaxy. "The War Council awaits your presence." Deho turned away from the view. His long coat flowed behind him as he walked through corridors lined with precious stones from conquered worlds. Servants pressed themselves against the walls as he passed. Their heads stayed low in respect and fear. The war chamber sat at the heart of the palace. It was a massive room with walls of clear crystal that showed the stars beyond. In the center, a holographic display showed the entire galaxy. Blue dots marked Valtirian worlds. Red dots showed the few systems that still resisted their rule. Around the display table, 12 generals waited for him. They were the finest military minds in the Empire. Each had won dozens of battles. Each had brought whole species to their knees. "Report," Deho said as he took his seat at the head of the table. General Minho activated the display. A small section of the galaxy grew larger, showing a yellow star with several planets around it. "My prince, our scouts have found a new system. The third planet shows signs of intelligent life." "What do we know about them?" Deho asked. "They call themselves humans. They live on a world they named Earth. Our intelligence shows they have basic technology. They can travel between their nearby planets but barely understand faster than light travel." Another general, a female named Hieji, stood up. "The species appears to be primitive, my prince. They fight among themselves constantly. They use crude weapons made of metal and explosive chemicals. They have no psychic abilities that we can detect." Deho studied the image of Earth spinning slowly in the display. It looked like a blue marble covered with swirling white clouds. "How many of them are there?" "About 8 billion on their homeworld," Minho replied. "They have small colonies on a few nearby planets and moons. Maybe another million spread across their system." 8 billion, Deho repeated. It was a large number, but not impossible to manage. "What of their military?" "Laughable," said General Hieji with a dismissive wave. "They have no unified command. Hundreds of separate nations, each with their own armies. Their weapons cannot pierce our shields. Their ships move like stones compared to ours." Deho nodded. This sounded like every other conquest. First contact, then demonstration of superior power, then surrender. Most species gave up after seeing just one Valtirian ship. The smart ones negotiated terms. The foolish ones fought briefly before accepting the inevitable. "Their psychology?" he asked. General Minho consulted his datapad. "Aggressive but disorganized. They seemed driven by basic emotions. Fear, anger, greed, nothing like the higher thoughts of our people. They should be easy to control once we establish mental dominance." "Very good." Deho stood and walked around the table. "I want this conquest to serve as training for our younger officers. The humans will provide good practice without real danger." The generals nodded in agreement. This was standard procedure for primitive worlds. "How long do you estimate for complete surrender?" Deho asked. 3 days, my prince," said General Hieji. "Perhaps a week if they prove stubborn." Deho smiled. A quick victory would look good in his service record. His father, the Emperor, had been questioning his readiness for greater responsibilities. A smooth conquest would prove his worth as a military leader. "I will lead this campaign personally," he announced. The generals looked surprised. Princes usually supervised from safe distances. "My prince," General Minho said carefully. "Is that wise? This is a minor world. Perhaps you could observe from the command ship while we handle the details." "No." Deho's voice carried the tone of final decision. "I want to see these humans for myself. I want to understand how they think before we put them to work in our mines and factories." He walked back to the star display and touched the image of Earth. "Besides, our younger officers need to see royal leadership in action. What better way to demonstrate Valtirian superiority than to have a prince personally accept their surrender?" The generals bowed their heads. When a prince decided something, it became reality. Prepare the Third Fleet, Deho commanded. 5 heavy cruisers, 10 destroyers, and support vessels. More than enough to overwhelm anything they might have. And ground forces, my prince? Asked General Minho. 2 divisions should be sufficient. We will establish control of their major population centers quickly. Once their leaders see our power, the rest will fall in line. Deho studied the display one more time. Earth looked so small and peaceful from this distance. Hard to believe it contained 8 billion individual lives. Soon all of those lives would serve the Empire. Their world would become another blue dot on the galactic map. Send advanced scouts immediately, he ordered. I want detailed information on their military capabilities and government structures. We depart in 7 days. The meeting ended with ritual salutes. The generals filed out to prepare their ships and soldiers. Soon, another world would learn the price of resisting Valterian rule. Prince Deho remained alone in the war chamber, still looking at the image of Earth. He had conquered 12 worlds in his career. This would be the 13th. Perhaps after this victory, his father would finally give him command of an entire sector. He had no way of knowing that this small blue world would change everything he believed about strength, courage, and what it meant to be truly superior. The prince turned off the display and walked toward his private chambers. In 7 days he would meet the humans. In 7 days his education would begin. The Valterian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, like dark wolves entering a peaceful meadow. Prince Deho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the dominant Dawn, watching the primitive human settlements appear on his screens. Target acquired, my prince, reported Captain Jinwoo from his station. We have located their outer colonies, Mars, Europa, and several space stations. Deho nodded as he studied the tactical display. The human installations looked pathetic compared to Valterian technology. Their ships were slow and clumsy. Their weapons seemed designed more for mining than fighting. Begin standard intimidation protocol, he ordered. Destroy 1 military vessel to demonstrate our power. Leave the rest alive to spread word of our arrival. The first human patrol ship never had a chance. A single blast from a Valterian destroyer turned it into expanding gas and metal fragments. Deho expected panic and immediate surrender calls. Instead, something strange happened. The humans began moving toward his fleet. Captain called Lieutenant Subin from communications. We are receiving multiple transmissions from the human forces. They appear to be coordinating an attack formation. Deho frowned. An attack? Against us? Do they not understand what they just witnessed? Apparently not, my prince, Captain Jinwoo replied with concern in his voice. Should we destroy them all? No, let them come. I want to see what passes for courage among these primitives. The human ships approached in loose formations that seemed chaotic to Valterian tactical thinking. Their movements looked random and unpredictable. But as they drew closer, Deho began to notice patterns that disturbed him. The human vessels split into small groups that attacked from multiple angles. When Valterian ships focused fire on one group, another would strike from an unexpected direction. The humans used their own space stations as cover, fighting among the structures they were supposed to be protecting. These tactics make no sense, muttered General Minho, who stood beside the prince. They are sacrificing strategic positions for minor tactical advantages. But the tactics were working. 3 Valterian destroyers had already taken significant damage. The humans fought like they had nothing to lose, ramming damaged ships into Valterian vessels when their weapons failed. My prince, Captain Jinwoo called out. The human ground forces on Mars are launching an assault on our landing parties. Deho turned to the ground battle display in disbelief. His elite troops, equipped with power armor and psychic weapons, were being pushed back by humans using crude projectile weapons and explosives. How is this possible? He demanded. The humans appear immune to our psychic domination techniques, reported Major Young-ho from the ground command station. Our mental attacks have no effect on them. They continue fighting even when facing certain death. On the main screen, Deho watched a human soldier charge directly at a Valterian war machine. The man carried what looked like an explosive device. He ran straight into the enemy position and detonated it, destroying both himself and the war machine. Madness, whispered General Minho. Pure madness. But more humans kept coming. They used the ruins of their own buildings as weapons, turning debris into projectiles. They set traps using their own equipment as bait. They fought with a creativity and desperation that Valterian military doctrine had no answer for. The space battle continued to go wrong. Human fighters, tiny compared to Valterian ships, swarmed around the larger vessels like angry insects. They targeted specific systems with surgical precision, crippling ships rather than destroying them. "Prince Deho," came an urgent voice from the communication station. "We are detecting a large human fleet approaching from Earth itself. At least 50 vessels." Deho studied the new contacts appearing on his display. These ships were larger than the patrol craft, but still primitive by Valterian standards. However, after watching the humans fight for the past hour, he no longer felt confident about easy victory. "Withdraw to safe distance," he ordered. "Maintain formation but do not engage the new fleet until I give the order." As his ships pulled back, Deho focused on the ground battle displays. In one sector, a human unit had captured a Valterian command post. The leader of this unit was a man who moved with professional precision through the chaos of battle. "Who is that human?" Deho asked, pointing at the display. Major Young-ho consulted his intelligence data. "Special Forces Operative Jae-woo Kim, according to intercepted communications. Age 32. Military background unknown, but his unit has destroyed 4 of our positions in the last 2 hours." Deho watched as this Jae-woo directed his soldiers with hand signals and tactical awareness that impressed even the prince. The human understood battlefield geometry and timing. He used Valterian overconfidence against them, setting ambushes in places where the aliens expected easy victories. "This one is different," Deho murmured. "He thinks like a warrior, not a panicked animal." The battle for the Mars colony continued through the day. By evening, Deho faced a situation he had never encountered before. His forces were not winning. They were not losing either, but they were certainly not winning. "Casualties report," he demanded. 12% of ground forces," replied Major Young-ho with obvious reluctance. 8% of fleet personnel. No ships lost, but 3 destroyers require major repairs. 12% casualties against a primitive species. The other generals would mock him if word of this spread. His father would question his competence. "My prince," Captain Jinwoo said carefully. "Perhaps we should call for reinforcements." "No." The word came out harder than Deho intended. "We will not retreat from primitives with chemical weapons." But as he watched the tactical displays, doubt crept into his mind. These humans fought differently than any species he had encountered. They seemed to welcome death if it served their purpose. They treated certain defeat as merely another tactical problem to solve. Most disturbing of all, they were learning. Each attack showed better understanding of Valterian weapons and tactics. They adapted faster than seemed possible for such a primitive species. Prince Deho stood on his bridge, watching the stars beyond Earth, and realized that his education about strength and superiority had begun sooner than expected. The capture of Jae-woo happened during his boldest raid yet. For 3 weeks, the human had led successful strikes against Valterian positions across the Mars colony. Each attack grew more daring than the last. This time he had targeted the command ship itself. Prince Deho watched from his private chamber as security forces dragged the human warrior through the corridors of the dominant dawn. Even in chains, Jae-woo walked with his back straight and his head up. Blood ran from cuts on his face, but his eyes showed no fear. "Bring him to the interrogation chamber," Deho ordered through the communication system. The interrogation chamber was designed to break the will of captured enemies. The walls were made of black metal that absorbed light. The air was kept cold enough to cause discomfort. Psychic amplifiers built into the room allowed Valterian interrogators to project overwhelming mental pressure. Deho entered to find Jae-woo sitting calmly in the restraint chair. The human's hands were locked in metal bonds, but he sat as if he were attending a business meeting rather than facing torture and death. "You are Jae-woo Kim," Deho said, taking a seat across from the prisoner. "I am," Jae-woo replied in clear Valterian. His accent was rough, but his pronunciation was correct. Deho raised an eyebrow. "You speak our language. I learned fast. 3 weeks is enough time to pick up basics from captured equipment and prisoners." Jae-woo met the prince's glowing eyes without flinching. "Are you the one in charge of this invasion?" The directness surprised Deho. Most prisoners begged for mercy or demanded to know why they were captured. This human asked questions like he was conducting the interrogation. "I am Prince Deho of the Valterian Empire. This system now belongs to us. Your people would suffer less if they accepted this reality." Jae-woo tilted his head slightly. "And if we do not accept it?" Then you will all die. Many of us will die anyway. Jaewoo's voice remained steady. We have studied your empire, Prince. We know what happens to conquered worlds. The choice is not between life and death. The choice is between dying as slaves or dying as free beings. Daeho leaned forward. This was not the response he expected from a primitive. You speak of freedom as if it has value greater than life itself. It does. Explain this to me. What is freedom worth if you are dead? Jaewoo was quiet for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. My grandfather fought in wars on Earth before I was born. He once told me that a man who will not die for something has never truly lived. Your grandfather was a fool, perhaps, but he died in his own bed, surrounded by children and grandchildren who lived free because of choices he made. Jaewoo looked directly at Daeho. What will your children remember about your choices, Prince? The question struck Daeho in a way he did not expect. No prisoner had ever asked him about his legacy or the meaning of his actions. They usually focused on immediate survival. My children will inherit an empire that spans the galaxy, Daeho said. Built on the bones of how many free peoples? Daeho stood up abruptly. This conversation was not going as planned. You are trying to confuse me with philosophy. It will not work. He activated the psychic amplifiers built into the chamber. Power flowed through his mind and projected outward, seeking to crush Jaewoo's consciousness and bend his will to Valterian control. The mental attack was strong enough to shatter the minds of most beings. Daeho had used it to break enemy commanders and turn them into willing servants. He expected immediate surrender and begging. Instead, Jaewoo closed his eyes and breathed slowly. The psychic assault struck his mind like waves hitting a stone cliff. It seemed to wash over him without causing the expected damage. Impossible, Daeho muttered, increasing the power. Jaewoo opened his eyes. They were filled with pain, but also with stubborn determination. You cannot break what refuses to bend. For the next hour, Daeho used every interrogation technique in the Valterian arsenal. Physical pain, mental pressure, sensory deprivation, hallucinogenic drugs. Each method had broken thousands of prisoners from dozens of species. Jaewoo endured them all. He answered no questions about human defenses. He revealed no strategic information. He showed no signs of breaking. Why? Daeho finally asked in frustration. Why do you endure this? I offer you comfort and position in our empire if you cooperate. I offer your people fair treatment if you help us understand them. Why do you choose suffering? Jaewoo looked at him with something that might have been pity. Because choosing suffering for a purpose is different from accepting suffering without meaning. You offer us the chance to live as pets. We choose to die as equals. Equals? Daeho laughed, but it sounded forced even to his own ears. Look around you, human. I am a prince of the greatest empire in the galaxy. You are a prisoner facing execution. How are we equals? Right now in this room you need something from me that I will not give. That makes us equals. The simple truth of this statement hit Daeho like a physical blow. For 3 weeks this human had frustrated his plans and embarrassed his forces. Now even as a prisoner, Jaewoo continued to resist in ways that challenged everything the prince believed about power and submission. Guard, Daeho called out. Return the prisoner to his cell. We will continue this tomorrow. As the guards led Jaewoo away, the human paused at the doorway. Prince Daeho, he said without turning around. You ask good questions. Perhaps tomorrow you will be ready to hear good answers. Alone in the interrogation chamber, Prince Daeho sat in the chair that had held his prisoner. For the first time in his life, he wondered if superiority was really about the power to force others to submit. This human had no weapons, no ships, no army to command. Yet somehow in this room, Jaewoo had been the stronger of the two. The prince stared at his hands that could channel enough psychic energy to level buildings. But they had not been enough to break one human warrior who refused to yield his principles. That night, Daeho did not sleep well. His dreams were filled with questions he had never asked and answers he was not sure he wanted to hear. 2 months into what should have been a 3-day conquest, Prince Daeho stood before another tactical display, showing red warning indicators across multiple star systems. The human resistance had spread far beyond Earth's solar system like wildfire jumping between forests. Report, he said to General Minho, though he already dreaded what he would hear. The humans have made contact with 17 different species across 4 sectors, Minho replied, his voice tight with worry. They are sharing their resistance techniques and tactical knowledge. Worlds that have been peaceful for decades are now openly rebelling. Captain Jinwoo stepped forward with additional bad news. My prince, we have lost communication with 3 garrison fleets. The Altair system has declared independence. The mining colonies in Sector 7 have stopped production entirely. Daeho felt a cold weight settling in his stomach. What had started as a simple training exercise was becoming a galactic crisis. How is this possible? How can one primitive species cause such widespread problems? It appears the humans have a gift for inspiring others, General Minho said carefully. Their messages speak of concepts that resonate with oppressed populations. Freedom, self-determination, the right to resist tyranny. Concepts, Daeho repeated with disgust. Ideas cannot defeat warships, and perhaps not, my prince. But ideas can convince people to sacrifice warships for something they believe in. The prince turned away from the tactical display and walked to the large window that showed Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. For 2 months, that small planet had defied the greatest military force in the galaxy. More troubling still, it was teaching others to do the same. My prince, came a familiar voice from behind him. Daeho turned to see his sister, Princess Haiyung, entering the war chamber. She wore the formal dress of the imperial family, but her expression was grim. 2 royal guards flanked her, their faces hidden behind ceremonial masks. Sister, Daeho said with surprise, what brings you so far from the homeworld? Father sent me to investigate why a simple conquest has become a 2-month siege, Haiyung replied coldly. The Imperial Council is asking uncomfortable questions about your competence. The words stung because they carried truth. Daeho had promised a quick victory to demonstrate his leadership skills. Instead, he had delivered the Empire's first prolonged military embarrassment in over a century. The situation is more complex than initial intelligence suggested, he said. So I have been told. Haiyung activated a personal data pad and began reading. Casualty reports show 15% losses across all divisions. Resource consumption is 300% above projected levels. And most concerning of all, human resistance tactics are being adopted by previously loyal subjects across 12 sectors. We are adapting our strategies to meet the challenge, Daeho said defensively. Are you? Haiyung fixed him with the same glowing stare that made their father so intimidating. Because from what I observe, you seem to be spending considerable time interrogating a single human prisoner, rather than directing military operations. Daeho felt heat rise in his face. That prisoner is key to understanding human psychology and tactics. Or perhaps you have become fascinated by something you cannot control, Haiyung said with cutting insight. Tell me, brother, what have you learned from this human that justifies the resources being spent on him? The question forced Daeho to examine his own motivations. Over the past weeks, his daily conversations with Jinwoo had become the most intellectually challenging part of his day. The human asked questions that no Valtirian had ever posed. He presented ideas that challenged fundamental assumptions about power, leadership, and the nature of strength itself. He has shown me that strength is not always about the ability to impose your will on others, Daeho said slowly. Haiyung's expression grew dangerous. Explain. This human has no psychic abilities, no advanced technology, no army at his command. Yet he has resisted every attempt to break his will. He draws strength from ideas and principles that I am only beginning to understand. You sound as if you admire this primitive. Daeho considered the accusation. Did he admire Jinwoo? The thought should have been ridiculous. Valtarians were superior beings. They were evolved beyond the crude emotional responses that drove lesser species. Yet when he compared Jinwoo's unwavering commitment to his principles with the fearful obedience of Valtirian subjects, the human seemed to possess something that his own people had lost somewhere in their climb to galactic dominance. I respect his consistency, Daeho said finally. In a galaxy where beings bow to whoever has the most power, he bows to no one. Haiyung studied her brother with growing concern. Father was right to send me. You are losing perspective. Daeho, these humans have somehow infected you with their primitive thinking. Or perhaps they have shown me that our thinking is not as advanced as we believed. The words came out before Daeho could stop them. The moment he spoke, he realized he had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. In Valtirian culture, questioning the superiority of their civilization was close to treason. Haiyung stepped back as if he had struck her. Brother, you cannot mean what you just said. I mean exactly what I said. Now that the admission was out, Daeho felt a strange relief. For 2 months I have watched humans fight against impossible odds for the right to remain free. I have seen them choose death over submission, sacrifice for others over personal survival. They possess qualities that we have forgotten in our pursuit of dominance. They possess nothing but stubborn ignorance. Hyung snapped. They are animals who refuse to accept the natural order. The natural order. Daeho repeated the phrase as if tasting something bitter. Tell me, sister, what is natural about ruling through fear? What is superior about a civilization that can only maintain itself by crushing the spirits of other beings? Hyung signaled to her guards, who moved closer to Daeho. I think the stress of command has affected your judgment. Perhaps you should return to the homeworld for rest and evaluation. Perhaps I should, Daeho agreed. But first I want you to meet my prisoner. I want you to speak with this human and tell me afterwards that he is nothing more than an ignorant animal. Hyung looked skeptical, but curiosity won over caution. Very well. Show me this remarkable primitive who has so thoroughly corrupted your thinking. As they walked toward the detention levels, Daeho wondered what his sister would see when she looked at Jae-woo. Would she see the same strength and dignity that had gradually earned his respect, or would she see only another subject to be broken and controlled? More importantly, what would Jae-woo see when he looked at her, and what truths might emerge from that meeting that neither royal sibling was prepared to face? The meeting between Princess Hyung and Jae-woo lasted exactly 17 minutes. Daeho watched through the security monitors as his sister attempted to use every interrogation technique in the Imperial Manual. The human answered her questions with the same calm dignity he had shown for months, turning each attempt at manipulation into a philosophical discussion. When Hyung emerged from the detention cell, her face was pale with anger and something else that looked like fear. That creature is dangerous, she said to her brother, not because of what he can do, but because of what he represents. His ideas could spread like a plague if other beings start to believe them. What ideas frighten you so much, sister? He speaks of worth that comes from within, rather than from position or power. He talks about strength that grows stronger under pressure rather than weaker. Worst of all, he makes it sound reasonable. Hyung gripped Daeho's arm. We must execute him immediately and end this rebellion before it spreads further. Before Daeho could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Captain Jinwoo's voice echoed through the communication system with urgent news. All senior staff to the bridge immediately. We have a massive human fleet approaching our position. The bridge erupted with activity as tactical displays showed the largest human armada ever assembled. Over 200 ships of various sizes formed attack formations around a massive vessel that dwarfed anything in Earth's previous fleet. Where did they get that ship? Daeho demanded, staring at the flagship that dominated his tactical screen. Unknown, my prince, replied Lieutenant Subin from her station. It appears to be constructed from salvaged parts of multiple vessels, including some of our own disabled ships. General Minho studied the formation with professional interest. They have learned from every engagement. This is not the chaotic attack pattern we saw months ago. This is coordinated assault doctrine. The human fleet spread out in a complex formation that would force the Valterians to split their fire between multiple targets. At the center, the massive flagship broadcast a signal on all frequencies. This is Admiral So-young of the Human Defense Fleet, came a clear female voice. We demand the immediate release of all human prisoners and the withdrawal of Valterian forces from our system. Daeho looked at the overwhelming force arrayed against his smaller fleet. His ships were technologically superior, but the humans had numbers and the tactical knowledge gained from months of warfare. The battle could go either way, with enormous casualties on both sides. An idea began forming in his mind. It was dangerous and went against all military tradition, but it might save thousands of lives while providing a solution to the larger political crisis his failed conquest had created. Open a channel to the human admiral, he ordered. My prince, General Minho said with alarm. Surely you do not intend to negotiate with these primitives. I intend to prevent unnecessary bloodshed while resolving this conflict with honor. The main screen, activated to show a middle-aged human woman in a military uniform covered with ribbons and insignia. Admiral So-young had graying hair and intelligent eyes that studied Daeho with the same intensity he was studying her. I am Prince Daeho of the Valterian Empire, he began formally. I have a proposal for you, Admiral. I am listening, she replied warily. Single combat between champions. Your best warrior against me personally. If I win, humanity surrenders and accepts incorporation into our empire under favorable terms. If your champion wins, we withdraw from this system and recognize human independence. The bridge fell silent. Princess Hayoung stared at her brother in shock. Daeho, what are you doing? She whispered. Admiral So-young also looked surprised by the unexpected offer. Why would you risk everything on single combat when you have a fleet at your command? Because this war has already cost too much, Daeho replied honestly. Both our peoples have shown courage and determination. Perhaps it is time to settle this with honor rather than more bloodshed. The admiral was quiet for several moments, clearly considering the proposal. Finally, she nodded. I accept your terms, Prince Daeho. Our champion will meet you in combat within the hour. When the communication ended, Hayoung grabbed her brother's arm. Have you lost your mind completely? Father will have you executed for this insanity. Perhaps, Daeho agreed. But I would rather face Father's anger than watch thousands die in a battle that will solve nothing. He paused and looked toward the detention levels. Besides, I believe I know who their champion will be, and I find myself curious to test my strength against his in fair combat. An hour later, both fleets maintained careful distance while a neutral arena was established on a small asteroid between them. The fighting ground was a simple circle, marked out on the rocky surface. With atmosphere and gravity provided by portable generators, Daeho wore his ceremonial combat armor, gleaming blue metal enhanced with psychic amplifiers that would boost his already formidable powers. He carried the plasma blade that had been in his family for generations. When the human champion arrived, Daeho smiled grimly at his own predictive abilities. Jae-woo walked into the arena wearing simple military fatigues and carrying basic projectile weapons. He looked completely outmatched by Valterian technology and psychic abilities. I wondered if they would choose you, Daeho said as they faced each other across the circle. I volunteered, Jae-woo replied. This seems like a fitting end to our conversations. One of us will not survive this encounter. I know. Jae-woo checked his weapons with practiced efficiency. But both of us will have the chance to prove what we believe about strength and honor. Daeho activated his plasma blade, filling the arena with blue light. Indeed we will, my friend. The word friend surprised them both. In the months of interrogation and conversation, something like mutual respect had grown between them. Now they would test that respect in mortal combat. Begin when ready, came Admiral So-young's voice over the communication system. Daeho raised his blade and summoned his psychic powers. Jae-woo lifted his rifle and took aim. Two warriors from different worlds fighting not just for victory, but for the right to define what victory meant. The battle that would determine the fate of both species was about to begin. The combat began with Daeho unleashing a wave of psychic energy that would have crushed the mind of any normal being. The attack struck Jae-woo like an invisible hammer, driving him to one knee. But the human gritted his teeth and forced himself back upright, raising his rifle despite the mental assault. The first shot barely missed Daeho's head as the prince dodged with superhuman speed. The plasma blade cut through the air where Jae-woo had been standing a moment before. But the human had already rolled away and taken cover behind a rock formation. You cannot hide forever, Daeho called out, his voice echoing across the asteroid's surface. Not hiding, Jae-woo replied from behind the rocks. Planning. 3 explosive devices detonated simultaneously around Daeho's position. The prince's armor protected him from the blast, but the debris cloud blocked his vision and disrupted his psychic focus. When the dust cleared, Jae-woo was gone. Daeho spun around, searching for his opponent. His enhanced senses detected movement behind him just in time to deflect a knife thrust aimed at the weak point in his armor. The blade skittered off the blue metal, but the attack had come dangerously close to finding its mark. Clever, Daeho admitted, launching a counterattack that forced Jae-woo to leap backward. I learned from good teachers, Jae-woo replied, firing rapid shots that kept the prince moving. The battle continued across the asteroid's surface for nearly an hour. Daeho had every advantage that technology and genetic enhancement could provide. His armor was nearly impenetrable. His blade could cut through solid steel. His psychic powers allowed him to predict attacks and strike with supernatural precision. Yet Jae-woo continued to fight. Every time Daeho thought victory was certain, the human found a new way to turn disadvantage into opportunity. When his rifle ran out of ammunition, he used thrown rocks and improvised explosives. When those were exhausted, he relied on hand-to-hand combat techniques that surprised the prince with their effectiveness. Most frustrating of all, Jae-woo never stopped thinking. Even while dodging deadly attacks, he studied Daeho's fighting patterns and looked for weaknesses to exploit. He turned the prince's superior speed against him by creating situations where rapid movement led into carefully prepared traps. "Why do you not surrender?" Daeho demanded during a brief pause in the fighting. Both warriors were breathing hard, though Jae-woo showed more signs of fatigue. "You cannot win this battle." "Winning is not the point," Jae-woo replied, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. "Fighting with honor is the point. Honor does not protect you from plasma blades." "No, but it gives meaning to the sacrifice." Daeho felt his composure beginning to crack. This human should have been defeated within minutes. Instead, the battle had become a grueling test of endurance and will. Worse, Jae-woo's calm acceptance of likely death was starting to affect the prince's own confidence. "You fight well for a primitive," Daeho said, trying to regain psychological advantage. "You fight well for someone who has never faced an equal opponent," Jae-woo replied. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Daeho realized that Jae-woo was right. In all his previous conquests, the prince had faced only terrified subjects or outmatched enemies. This was his first battle against someone who refused to be intimidated by superior power. The realization triggered something deep in Daeho's mind. All the conversations, all the questions, all the philosophical challenges that Jae-woo had presented over the past months suddenly crystallized into a moment of absolute clarity. This human was not his inferior. Despite all the technological and genetic advantages that made Valterians seem superior, Jae-woo possessed something that made him truly equal. He had the strength to face overwhelming odds without breaking. He had the courage to maintain his principles even when facing death. Most importantly, he had earned these qualities through his own choices rather than inheriting them through accident of birth. The recognition of genuine equality shattered Prince Daeho's composure completely. For the first time in his life, he was fighting someone who deserved his full respect as a warrior and as a being. The weight of that realization sent him to his knees in the middle of the arena. Jae-woo approached cautiously, unsure if this was another tactical maneuver. When he saw the genuine emotional breakdown happening in front of him, he lowered his improvised weapon and waited. "I understand now," Daeho said quietly. "All this time I thought strength meant the power to make others submit. But you have shown me that true strength is the power to choose submission or defiance based on your own principles. And you have shown me that even those born to privilege can learn to see beyond their advantages," Jae-woo replied. "That gives me hope for peace between our peoples." Daeho looked up at the human warrior. "You could kill me now. I am defenseless. That would serve no purpose. You fought with honor. You deserve to live with honor." The prince stood slowly and deactivated his plasma blade. "Then let us end this combat as it should be ended. Not with death, but with understanding." He turned toward the fleets watching from space and activated his communication system. "This combat is concluded. Both warriors have demonstrated courage and skill worthy of respect. I hereby order the withdrawal of all Valterian forces from the human system." Princess Hayoung's voice crackled over the communication system. "Brother, you cannot make this decision alone. Father will never approve." "Then Father will have to choose between accepting my decision or executing his own son," Daeho replied calmly. "I will not continue a war against beings who have proven themselves worthy of freedom." Admiral So-young's voice joined the conversation. "And what of the Empire's expansion plans? Will you simply abandon your conquest of other systems?" Daeho looked at Jae-woo, who nodded encouragement. "I will propose a new approach to the Imperial Council. Instead of conquest, we will offer alliance. Instead of forcing submission, we will seek cooperation between equals." "Do you think they will accept such a radical change?" Jae-woo asked. "Probably not," Daeho admitted. "But you have taught me that some principles are worth fighting for, even when victory seems impossible." The two warriors stood together on the asteroid, looking up at the fleets of their respective species. The battle was over, but the larger struggle for a different kind of relationship between their peoples was just beginning. "Will we meet again?" Jae-woo asked. "Almost certainly," Daeho replied with a slight smile. "Though I hope next time it will be as allies rather than enemies." Jae-woo extended his hand in the human gesture of respect. After a moment's hesitation, Daiho grasped it firmly. The handshake between a Valterian prince and a human warrior marked the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. There will be others who resist this change, Jaewu warned, both among your people and mine. Then we will face them together, Daiho said. After all, you have taught me that the most important battles are fought for principles rather than territory. As the two fleets began their withdrawal procedures, word of the unprecedented combat and its resolution spread across both civilizations. Some called it the end of Valterian dominance. Others saw it as the beginning of a new age of cooperation between species. Prince Daiho returned to his empire forever changed. He faced investigation, criticism, and political opposition from those who saw his actions as betrayal of Valterian superiority. But he also found unexpected support from younger officers who had witnessed the costly futility of trying to conquer, beings who refused to be conquered. Jaewu became a symbol of human resilience and a bridge between species. His willingness to risk everything for the chance at peace made him a legend among resistance movements across the galaxy. More importantly, his example showed that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from defeating an enemy, but from earning their respect. The galaxy learned that true strength could not be measured in weapons or psychic power alone. Sometimes the greatest strength lay in the courage to change one's mind, the wisdom to recognize equals among supposed inferiors, and the honor to choose difficult principles over easy victories. In the years that followed, Prince Daiho would often remember the moment when his understanding of superiority cracked, like brittle armor under the weight of genuine respect. That memory would guide him as he worked to transform an empire built on domination into something that could coexist with free peoples. And somewhere in the vastness of space, two warriors who had found honor in their conflict continued to fight for the radical idea that strength and nobility could be earned by any being willing to pay the price in courage and principle.